Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to find stocks worthy of investment. Stock investment has always been a popular way to manage wealth, and the Gallup find that 55% of Americans reporting that they own stocks based on a poll conducted in March and April last year. There are many investment strategies. Among them, factor investing is famous for combining the advantage of both passive and active investing. So our question arises, can we use the factors to find profitable stocks? In other words, can we find some factors that contribute to the excess return of the stocks? After some research, we decide to use the Fama and French five-factor models. And the basic idea of this model is to factorize the stock return to factor exposure times factor return, where the factor exposure refers to the degree to how much the stock return is affected by factors, while factor return refers to the change of stock return caused by the change of factor exposure of each unit. And below is the formula of our model. And these are how those five factors are defined in Fama and French model. For example, the risk premium is the difference between daily market return and daily risk-free interest rate. And then I will introduce our data set. The first data set includes five factors and the risk-free rate collected from CSMAR database. And the plot is the distribution of those factors. Our next dataset is the stock return from Shanghai and Shenzhen Stock Exchange of China. And we collect daily price of 2,816 stocks from January 2nd, 2014 to December 31st, 2015. And the plot is the excess return of the 6 randomly select stocks in the first quarter of 2015. And then we do the data cleaning. First of all, we will delete some missing values. There are 12 stocks have missing values on the stock returns. And the next step, we deal with some outliers. We define our outliers as observations greater than 99.9 quantile or smaller than 0.1 quantile. And finally, we standardize our factors to prepare for comparison between those factors. And you can see from the plot that after standardization, the factor follows normal distribution. And the next step, we check the correlation between the dependent and independent variables. And you can see from the plot that the mean return is moderately related to all five factors. And my teammate will elaborate the regression and estimation part. Thank you.
After data processing, we need to use the model to estimate parameters. Firstly, as shown in the first equation on the slide, we should regress each stock's return over factors over the 2 years to acquire the factor exposure of each specific stock. After the first step regression, we get a series of the estimation of the factor exposure. Next, we will take the factor exposure as the independent variable, and the time series mean of stock return as the dependent variable to fit linear regression to estimate the factor return lambda. Reviewing the summary of the model, we can see that the SMB and IMW factors didn't pass the t-test, so they are not significant in our model. We decided to drop them. And this is the summary of the new model with only 3 factors. You can see the adjusted R-square of our model is 0.5413, which is a pretty good result. It means that our model can explain the majority of stocks return. So this is our final model. And the factor returns of risk premium, HML, CMA are all less than 0. Well, the absolute value of HML is the largest, which means that it has the most significant impact on the stock return. And the influence degree of three factors are HML greater than CMA greater than risk premium. Therefore, the criteria of stock selection should be to choose the stocks with smaller factor exposure on HML, while the factor exposure on CMA and risk premium should be as small as possible too. Based on this criteria, we screened out the lowest 10 stocks of HML factor exposure. The factor exposure of these three stocks on HML are much smaller than others, while their factor exposure on CMA and risk premium are also small, so these stocks are good choice. Although our model looks good, it still has some limitation. We should be clear that this model is an explanatory model with the purpose to decompose the return of stocks, rather than a prediction model. Our selection of stocks is based on strong assumptions. First, the factor exposure of individual stocks will not change over time, and the factor return is consistent in the past and in the future. Obviously, these assumptions are very difficult to establish in real life, so we need to study how to predict the change of factor return and the factor exposure so that we can find the stocks worthy of investment more precisely. And that's all. Thanks for watching.